Hi everyone and welcome to my channel Caroline's Knits. My name is Caroline and I live in Scotland with my husband Ben, a dog Fela who's currently out for a walk with the dog walker and I'm expecting to walk in a minute, and our baby girl Selena. This is my 2024 finished knits, not my 2025 finished knits, which I am hoping to do, but we're still a little bit away and I'm hoping to finish some more projects before I film that one. This one I've actually filmed for all 3 previous years before 2024. So if you like this style of video, you're welcome to look back. I think some of them are better. I think in 2023, I might have had like wine while I filmed it, and I feel like that was a much cooler vibe than today with my nursery cold. But I really wanted to film it because I like having this like record and reflection on how my past year, or like how that year kind of went when it comes to knitting. And just for complete transparency, I didn't film it at the time because at the start of 2024 I fell pregnant, and then I spent most of it being pregnant, and by the end of 2024 Selena was just about 3 months, so we were still deep in the newborn trenches, it felt like. And I see so many people managing so much when they have quite small babies, and just being completely honest, because I think sometimes that's also nice to hear. I was coping, and actually I think I was coping in a lot of ways quite well, but I wasn't coping well enough to do lots of filming or lots of content. That was something that I've just completely stopped while she was very, very little, and I'm only just picking up now. That she's about 1 year old. So I thought I'd say that in case any of you are about to have a baby and you see all of these people being really productive, I'm just going to say, from all the mums I know, you can have it all and that's okay. And obviously social media doesn't pay my bills. So that was something I let go. So enough said about all of those things. I'm going to keep it low key. I personally think these videos are best when you're just speaking, you know, from your heart and not too fancy structured. I pulled up what I finished on my iPad just to make it easier for me to remember. But this was a year where I feel like when I look, first of all, I wasn't overly, like I made 18 projects and knitted about 11,000 meters according to Ravelry, which I don't actually think is all that much compared to what I've done other years. Like when I look, I had a lot fewer garments for me than I've had in previous years. But in a lot of pregnancy, I honestly didn't knit very much, so I'm kind of not surprised, all for different reasons in different stages. Again, I know some people when they're pregnant that really takes up knitting and really enjoy that, but between the nausea first trimester, the like burst of energy in second trimester, and then a baby in my ribs, it was just by the third trimester, I just was not in a place to knit. And when she was first born, I held her. So I didn't knit a lot when she was a newborn. You probably could if you prioritised differently or held her differently, etc, etc. But yeah, so I'm going to show you things in order. So the very first thing that I finished were these socks, and I should say I'd gifted for some of these things. Like, I don't think it's that, again, I always say this, but for example, some of this yarn was gifted by Simona from Knit, who owns Knit. We are also like friends, and I make a terrible like collaborator, like I don't make very good ads, but the main colour of this is Sandness Smart, I think, which is essentially the DK weight sock yarn, and then I have some Peruvian Highland wool in Merlot for the contrast cuff. And yeah, these were, like, from what I remember, quite an easy make, but I really like this. I also think it's called the Fanrum socks, I think, and they are a free pattern on Ravelry, which is always nice. I did knit these on like a 2.5mm gauge, not gauge, I got distracted by a notification on my watch, on a 2.5mm needle, so they are very, very dense, but you know, I actually think it's made them fit better and wear. They are overdue a wash, so I'm going to leave them down here for wash. The next thing I finished over that sort of, I think I'd started it, we went to Lissy's wedding in November 2023, and I started this essentially while we were away and knitted it throughout December coming into the new year. This is the Celeste sweater by Petite Knit. It's an all-round colourwork sweater that basically took knitting Instagram by storm, I think it's fair to say, after it was released, and I really like the colours I chose for it. The main colour of this is Peruvian Falcana Peruvian Highland wool in cinnamon, and then I just use all sorts of different bits. There's some pigin, some more Peruvian, and some heavy merino, and some Hilhon wool spinnery in the colour work, so it's all very different. And from memory, this final dot was meant to be a different colour, but I preferred it in white. And this has been such a worn garment for me, and I think a big trend for the garments especially is that I feel like that year I knit things with a little bit more length on the body, which I think is a little bit better. These sleeves could have been a little bit longer, but they aren't too bad. And I just think this really has just been such an easy style. I actually wore this past weekend. This is what I picked to wear this morning. It just has just enough colour with the green and like the contrast of the grey and browns that it just fits really naturally with my wardrobe. So this has been a major hit for me. I will say that Peruvian is incredibly pilly on its own. I think it's much better held with a second strand, so you don't get as much pilling. And this was freshly depilled this Saturday. So usually I don't like fix knits before these videos, but this one was already like I'd fixed for normal wear. But I have had to do that quite a few times. And it also makes me question like the longevity of this project. Like I don't think this will be like an heirloom knit just because I think the Peruvian will give in before that. But I still really like it, and I didn't like cinnamon on its own. Like I wouldn't want cinnamon on a project with no other colours. It didn't really feel that me once it arrived, but mixed with all of these I really like it. So that was my first finished bigger project, like sweater project. Then my next one, again, Ad gifted. This is knit in Cardiff Cashmere Classic that I was gifted by Simona when she started stocking Cardiff Cashmere. This is the Laura Lou shawl by Sarai Maudlin, and I should have knitted it a wee bit longer. I had 2 balls of yarn for it, and I didn't use the second one because I think I sized down my needle size and it's just ever so slightly too small. But actually I've worn this loads, and for a scarf, I guess you don't get like normal wear and tear, but there's no pilling on this. And I actually wore this loads in 2025, simply because for the first few months of Selena's life, she was a really bad spitter, and I actually didn't wear like a lot of knits after she was born, simply because they would just get covered in milk and I needed things I could wash. Like sometimes I'd wear 2-3 outfits myself a day. So I actually wore this loads because I could pop this on out of spit up reach, and also for walks. Being a winter baby, I had lots of cold walks, so I've used this loads, and I would knit this again. I think it's meant to be like a 1 skein or like 1 ball project. So essentially I think the recommended yarn is knitting for olive, merino and soft silk mohair, and you could get this out of it, and I definitely would. It looks much more complicated than it actually was, but from memory the charts were alright. So yeah, this one is this definitely will not be my last Laura Lou shawl. The next thing I finished is a hipster hat, which I've given to my mum, so I have no pictures of it, which was I think it was a little bit too small for me. Then the next thing I finished is this, so I will pop this on to show you. There we go. This is sweater number 11 Light by My Favourite Things Knitwear, and this I had started just around the time I fell pregnant, and I think I'd gone to like here or something on the body, and it was such a slog. This took me months to knit through the nausea, but I'm really happy with it. This is knit in Lana Gatto VIP and Filcolana Tilia, and I think there is some pilling here underneath the arms I can see, but I have worn this so much. I also wore it loads in pregnancy actually, because it wasn't that tight fitting over my belly, and I personally never got that big a baby bump, which everyone loved to comment on, the fact I didn't look very pregnant. But that also meant that I feel like for quite a while I just felt really bloated and uncomfortable, and I really struggled like to have like my bump on show. I feel like I actually hid it quite a lot, which makes me kind of sad now. But I like this because it was like a way to like, I could like, you know, put a hand on top of my bump but not have it like out. So I used it a lot for that, and also I just liked it because it was nice and loose and comfy. It's not like right up in your armpits, but I personally like how This design doesn't have massive sleeves. A big complaint for me with these kind of, you can see it's like a drop shoulder designs, is that you then get like these massive sleeves and really loose cuffs. That's not my vibe at all. I think it looks really unproportional on me actually. So yeah, this has been like such a good knit. You can also see even from the Celeste sweater, I added a few more inches to the sleeves, and in general, like the body is quite long, like it is longer, quite a lot longer at the back. And this is really a sweater where I feel like I just got all the lengths right. I have worn this so much, this colour is so easy to style. I did do a few modifications from the original pattern, which is quite rare for me, but they're nothing major. Essentially, in the original pattern, you have a twisted rib all over, and you also have a big roll neck, which I like the idea of the roll neck, and I might knit this pattern and still do a roll neck, but if I'm honest, I'm kind of over twisted rib. I used to really love it, at the minute, not really my vibe, so I just went for completely standard rib, and I think when I did that, I got like quite a nice, like this is such a basic, like it just kind of goes with things. Like the summer I was pregnant especially, I wore like these linen trousers that were like a denim blue, but obviously in like linen material. I really like those two colours together. Yeah, I just find this colour really stylable, I guess, and very wearable. So this has been a major win for me, even if it did take me months to knit it, because I'm wearing a really lovely like built-in brown nursing top. I'm going to pop on the next big project I finished while I talk you through some smaller projects I also finished. At this point, as I said, I obviously knew I was pregnant, and I started doing a few more knits. Like once I finished that, I was like out of the first trimester and started to feel more like knitting again. So I made the mini björntuffler, which are these cute little like booties, like sock booties for babies. Then I made a bonnet, and I made little mittens all from leftover scraps of knitting full of heavy merino that I got gifted for a test knit. Then I made those three. Of the three, I used the mittens a few times, would knit again if I had another baby. The booties used so much. I would knit several of those if I had another baby, and I am at times, like I am tempted to knit another pair for this winter, just for the pram, the carrier, the car. Like they were so useful, and that fit was really great. The bonnet never fit her, she hated hats, never used it. Then my next big project is this, my next big finish. This is the Eva cardigan by Petite Knit. As you can tell, it was very basic in 2024, and knit just basic designers. I'm just going to knit it. Slight interruption there. I am also now joined by my eldest, who's very proud because she's just come back from walkies. But yeah, I made this very classic basic cardigan. It has 2x2 ribbing all across, and you just do standard bind-offs, which is nice and easy. And I added these black buttons. So I really like the fit of it. I like the v-neck, I like the long sleeves, and actually again, when I was pregnant, I wore this quite a lot. But I knitted this in Lanagatto Maxi VIP, so it's essentially the DK version of this, but well, you can see on the inside it does have a lot more pilling. Like, I don't think I've ever depilled this, so it's really not bad. This, however, I didn't hold with a second strand. Yeah, I held like Maxi VIP, which is just a normal DK weight, or like the DK weight version, but with no mohair. And I don't know if you can see like the pilling on this. So Maxi VIP is a cashmere, well, it's a merino, like 80-20 merino cashmere, and it is incredibly soft and lovely, has absolutely no itch factor, it's completely inappropriate to be held on its own, I think. It is also very slouchy, and I kind of suspected that, which is why I very deliberately picked a pattern that didn't like needed like a lot of structure. Like I feel like something like this needs like the crispness of Peruvian, which, you know, this kind of doesn't. Like it does have this quite interesting shoulder, which I can't remember what it's called, but it's not like quite a drop shoulder. is it a set-in sleeve, I think it's called. Very interesting construction, and I did enjoy it. So it's like in between like an oversized drop shoulder combined with like a saddle shoulder almost kind of fit. And yeah, I really like the fit of it. Probably shouldn't have used this yarn for it all. I should have held a second strand. But I feel like, I don't know if you can tell so far, but when I look at the sort of like 3 projects at the start of that year, all of these were yarns from Stash. I bought very little yarn in 2024, and I just absolutely, like, I just feel like this year, like that year, I really like narrowed down kind of how I make garments that work for me. And I think in that sense, like all of these were incredibly successful garments, especially because I finally started working through some of my more neutral choices. I think I've held them on this pedestal of like not wanting to make them, because when I started knitting, getting neutrals was like impossible because everyone wanted to knit neutral sweaters at the start of the pandemic. So I feel like for a while I didn't want to knit up all of these neutral yarns in case I couldn't replace them. But by 2024, like I don't think it's impossible now if you want to knit a sweater in this colour. But I also feel like at this point I had become in general a lot better about picking the right yarn for the right project, and also doing like longer lengths. So I think these 3 are all, this I have worn quite a lot. I haven't worn it for a while simply because I know it always needs a depot. But honestly, wearing it right now, I think it could be a great home office sweater for me. So mainly that's the problem. I also suspected that making this, so I'm not that surprised. But I will say all of these sweaters are all projects that I have worn a lot compared to some of my previous years where I made lots of things and also made a lot more. But I don't feel like they got as much wear. And honestly, it was a lot more about like producing things and making things than I feel like maybe making things that I wanted to wear and use after. So with the leftovers for this, I made a Sanders booklet pattern from my famous booklet that I speak about in basically every podcast, called the Oliver Raglan cardigan. Well, that was a slightly longer interruption than I intended. My mum phoned and we had a little chin wag. So I can't quite remember the point I was making, but I know I was speaking about the little cardigan I made for Selena. So with the Maxi VIP leftover from this, I made the Oliver Raglan cardigan from the Sanders booklet, which is like the world's simplest cardigan. I've recently just made that in a size Selena can fit now, and it's just great for like no faff. I made that in a very, very smallest size, and I think she wore it on like her 3rd day, like when she was 3 days old, because it really truly did fit for newborn. And actually it's one of the few things, because it was DK weight, this yarn is so drapey and not that bulky that I didn't really feel like it was like restricting her. But being, again, a winter baby, I felt like she needed another layer. I guess technically she's not winter baby, she's like late autumn baby, but you get my point. Yeah, she needed that extra layer, and that cardigan was just absolutely perfect. And I actually think if I was to pass on a recommendation, if you're having babies, you know, a baby around that Halloween time, or you know someone that is, or like in the winter months where babies come home and, you know, homes are cold, you'll be going in and out of the car, but you don't want them in, you shouldn't have them in big bulky jackets, etc. A cardigan like that was so good, and honestly was not, you know, not a very time consuming knit. I think I knit it in like 2-3 days. And yeah, I would knit that again. If I had another baby, I would probably make basically make every size, because you can always use a cardigan. It's low faff, not lots of stitches to pick up, and it was a great way to use the yarn left over from this. So the next thing I made was some socks for my daughter, which I feel like I packed away, but I feel like she would still fit into them for longer than I used them. It's the Pecan Strumber, which are like these like knee-high socks with some lace down the side. I think I took some pictures of them. I don't have any on Ravelry, so I'll see if I can dig out. But if I can, essentially they're just these burgundy baby socks. In contrast to the booties, I never found those as helpful as socks, and they have like a folded cuff, and I actually think I'm a bigger fan of ribbing for normal socks. So I have later made the everyday socks by Petite Knit for Lissy, for her baby, but I'm planning to make some for Selena. I'm just going to let the dog in. So yeah, I would probably make like everyday socks instead of those. They look really cute, never really got that much use out of them, I don't think. I also noticed that there's definitely a pair of Sunday socks, which I might have finished in 2025, but I use those a lot more. Like for socks, I think the Sunday socks are also a good like extra layer, especially because Sunday socks by Petite Knit, because they have like, you know, like a folded cuff. So sometimes I used them as like full-on leg warmers in a single layer. They were quite good. The next thing I then made or finished was this rib blanket, which I started. That's also from the booklet, Famous Sanders booklet. I started that like when I first fell pregnant, and it just took me a long time because blankets are boring to knit. Then we are back to something a little bit more exciting. This is the Inge sweater by Lene Holm Samsø. I finished this just around the time I went on maternity leave, plus minus like a few weeks, like plus minus a little bit. I finished that around that time. It's knit in Sandnes Pig-in. That's right, that summer I went to Denmark and I picked up the contrast colours because when I saw this design I really liked it. In the original pattern, the colours are switched essentially, so the base is also this kind of like neutral base. I think the original is knitted in Jensen, Især Jensen, and the base is 4S, which I actually have upstairs. I think it's 4S. It's essentially this like oatmeal-y colour, whereas this is like natural white, and I had gifted. The base of this is essentially natural white Pig-in, and when I received that from Simona, because I picked the colour myself, it was when she first started stocking Pig-in from Sandnes, I realised that it was way too yellow for me, and I tried in a few things. Like I started like this cabled cardigan, and I just realised that like true natural white was just not my vibe, and a bit like the cinnamon yarn in the Celeste sweater, I'd come to realise that actually in colour work I didn't think I'd find the natural white like offensive. Like I think it kind of suits this like quite classic silhouette, and then it has like, you know, it has like the rolled neck, which I actually quite like in this, and yeah, obviously all over colour work. So while I was in Denmark, that summer I bought the red and the blue, but I decided to switch it. So in the original pattern, these are like, this colour is like that dark navy and this is red, but I quite like red, so I kind of wanted that to be the dominant colour. I don't know if that was the right choice or not. Now at the time, what happened then was I've just spoken about all the success of the previous projects. When I blocked this, the red bled so much, and I still remember I'd put it in the bathtub, everything looked fine, I'd washed my swatch as well, and I came up and I was just going to turn it over, and as soon as I started turning it over, I just saw the whole bath turn red, and I knew I was screwed. So I don't think it's that obvious. I don't know how I show you this. I'm trying to look at the camera at the same time, which I can't. I don't think it's that obvious anymore, but because it kind of just looks like the red fluff has attached to ribbing, but essentially it has like red stripes across the ribbing, and honestly it put me off wearing it so much. I have not worn this very much, though we recently got a cold snap in the UK, and I realised this is like the perfect, like I made this intended for it to be like a home office, dog walk kind of sweater, like kind of like a bit of a statement, but still easy to style, and it's definitely been that way for me. But yeah, with the colour bleeding, I haven't used it as much. What I find quite interesting is that I see lots of people say Pig-in wears really well, but I don't know if you can tell, but I think it's pilled a surprising amount. Oh yeah, it's bled really bad right there. It's like a big pink splotch. And there's quite a lot of pilling on the sleeves on this. So yeah, after year, like I think the lengths are perfect. I had to do some rejigging of like the final bit of the pattern because I thought I was going to run out of yarn, which I then didn't. So I had to do some rejig of the pattern. And I think that turned out really nice. I think the lengths of it, like you can see, like covers my bum, like perfect, well not covers my bum, but like it goes down quite far on my bum, like it's perfect for kind of dog walking. But yeah, the colour bleeding was a major bummer and has definitely made me more cautious of colourwork sweaters with big contrast in the future. So I made that, and then we're moving on to a few smaller knits that I don't have on hand. I made another pair of booties, same mini brown tuffler but without the bear face on it, and I made that in, for the rib blanket I had some leftover Johnson Merino extra fine, and in an afternoon I knitted those little booties, which just like the grey ones I used loads until one bootie disappeared and never returned. I then made the Sildra mittens by Scandia Knits with the cream pigment and the navy blue that was left over from this. I gifted those to my gran that Christmas, and they were beautiful though. I did enjoy it. I would knit colourwork mittens again. Then I made the Seaside set from Petite Knit in burgundy for Selena. I made that in size 2 to 4 months. So essentially the main, like for the top I used Arvetta in marzipan for like the non-stripes, and then for the stripes I used this burgundy yarn that I had bought that summer when I'd been away with my knitting friends, with my knit group, and then I made like burgundy trousers as well. And I used this set quite a lot for baby carrying. Once I really got into that, I used it quite a lot, and I actually found it fitted like for a really, really long time. And the same, I also, around this period, after Selena was born, I finished this off. I made the Seaside blouse, so just a blouse in charcoal grey. The Seaside set is a set that came up loads when I was researching what people really enjoyed for their babies, and I think it is like consistently just an excellent pattern. It's fingering weight, so I don't think it's major quick, and I found the stripes quite faff, but it's a great way to like get a bit of interest, I guess, on a sweater. So also good for tiny scraps, like the smaller size, or like 2 to 4 months, use like less than a ball of yarn kind of vibes, especially if you do stripes. So really great stash buster. And the buttons here on it, really, really practical, but it's also great when your baby still spends a lot of time on their tummy. Like now that Selena's 1 and is walking, it's a lot, like I actually use sweaters more than anything. But back then it was nice to have like, not like the buttons from a cardigan, but just have buttons to get her head in and out. So I used it loads for baby carrying as an extra layer out and about, but I also think it's like, anyway, my thoughts on baby knits are, you can basically buy everything. I'll make a dedicated video to essentially give that message. So those two are kind of similar timeline. The very final thing, I know that because the picture of me wearing it was taken when like 3 days before Selena was born, is this, which is the Lumi pullover by Nodlin, which is I used Camel Horse's Sniff Nook, which I think is like basically Aran weight. It's like a little bit thicker than True DK at least, and I use that obviously like for the base and for the colour work in this, which is like a dark navy. It's all around colour work, but it's like quite a lot longer in the back, and it's a round circular yoke, and you might be able to tell, but there's a lot of extra room in it. Like, this is it, and then if I do that, you can see like that's a lot of extra room. So funnily enough, I don't know if I think this was like my most successful knit as such. I knitted this, as I said, like I still remember like it got blocked essentially a week before Selena was born. So I was very, very pregnant, and it was like the last big thing I finished. And that also meant that I couldn't gauge length whatsoever. Like I found that really hard, and I actually think on this I even added a bit more length than maybe the pattern said. But as you can see on the pictures, like I can't tell because there's a baby bump in it. And even towards the tail end, people did tell me I had a tiny baby bump, but in those pictures it looks massive. Who knows, maybe I ate a lot of cake right before the pictures were taken. But yeah, and I do think to some extent I wish I'd made it a little bit longer. If I stand like this, the thing I kind of like, I do like is that it kind of hits at the front almost like not quite at the top of my hips, but almost, and then obviously it's longer in the back. And I just think now, like when I chose the size, I still remember thinking it was quite big, because I think it has like, maybe it has a bit too much armhole like depth. There's something about the fit basically that I haven't quite been able to put my finger on. I don't know. Looking at it now, it might actually just be that the armholes are really deep, and I would probably easily have gone down 2 sizes. I think I would have been much happier in something that's smaller. And frequently when I knit things that aren't a drop shoulder, I have a much bigger bust circumference. Like my proportions are, I am quite big busted compared to like around my belly. And I often find that if I knit things based on like what they say for recommended ease around my bust, I have slim arms and I'm slim around like this area. And I just often find that like it doesn't fit quite right, because it essentially just becomes like not tent-like, sounds really rude, but that's what it feels like. It just, everything feels a bit too big. And what I find about this being so big is that it's a bit cold on my belly, like you kind of lose out on the warmth of the yarn. And yeah, so this is probably, like the Inga sweater was a bit of a fail because the colour bled. And to be honest, like as I was like, even before I knitted this, I knew this was highly likely to be more of a process knit than like a project, like finished project knit, and that's okay. Yeah, I just wanted to knit this pattern and I enjoyed it. But this, I think I had hoped would be more like, when I finished this, it was going to be my new favourite sweater kind of vibes, and it hasn't been. Funnily enough though, I have worn this loads because the colours go really well in my wardrobe. I'm really into navy at the minute. I think navy goes really well, and I'm really into these like brown colours. I feel like it kind of softens up my look a little bit while still being neutral, so I've worn this quite a lot. I don't know if I've uploaded any like outfits of the days in it. I don't think so, but yes, I definitely have actually. But I just, yeah, I find it quite easy to style, and because it's a little bit higher here in contrast to some of the other sweaters, if I'm wearing something slightly more high-waisted with wide legs, this goes quite well. So not a fail, not a win, I think. But this was another like amount of project yarn that I had actually bought for Augustine's and never knitted it. And then I was too scared to knit it up because I didn't want to waste the good yarn. So I am actually kind of glad that I finished it. And the very final thing that I finished was that in the leftover yarn from this, I made the bandana cowl in this kind of brownish colour, which is a free pattern from Pearl Soho. I've already made it before for myself in Peruvian, but I gave that away to my mum, and I don't think I ever photographed it, so I can't show that. But I feel like towards the turn of that year, I really got into using scraps, and now here coming towards the tail end of 2025, I'm still quite enjoying working a bit of scraps. So yeah, that's my full year. Hopefully it won't be too long till I see you for 2025. And yeah, tell me what has been your favourite project this year. That'd be lovely to know, and I'll see you soon. Bye!